All right.
for people to connect.
Are
And
we
let's
good? We're not
see,
backstage.
turning on our cameras. Also, recording is started.
Okay.
Perfect. Hello.
Hello,
Hello,
hello.
Bill.
Hi.
Wednesday noon or afternoon. How are you?
Good, good. Yes, just afternoon, 12:02. So we're doing great here. How you doing
12.
in Toronto?
I'm doing good. It's just a nice rainy day as it should be on 30th of November.
Exactly.
But
At least it's not
here
snowing,
we
right?
are. It's coming. It's coming. We're For now we're just taking the rain and yeah, but let's see how our attendance is looking like. Hello everybody. Hopefully you are just joining in and having a smooth login process. Welcome to episode number 9 of Books and Beyond. This is a most expected episode. We have Bill Dow today with us. And yeah, well, everybody knows who Bill Dow is. So
I wish.
everybody's really excited to hear about this conversation. And he will be enlightening us today about communication and tools for that within our projects. And yeah, so Bill, we're very happy and grateful that you took time of your day to be with us here and share your lessons learned and experience.
Yeah.
Before we go into the cool discussion, just a reminder for people to know we have on the right side of our screen we have a chat box and also a Q&A box. The Q&A obviously would be for questions, and the chat box for anything nice that you would like to say. So feel free to use that. Feel free to talk to us. We want to hear from you. And also, Michael, good point, and hi to you too.
Hi,
If you'd
Michael.
like to put in the chat where you're from, that would be great. So we know this is a global webinar series. So we are happy to know that we're talking to the whole world.
Yeah,
So yeah,
that's
and
great.
if
Hey,
anybody
Michael.
has any, we'll look at them and we'll we'll either get to you like during the conversation or maybe at the end, depending on the case. But yeah, so
Awesome.
then we can just go ahead and get started. Oh, also, and also one more thing. Sorry about that, Bill.
Sure.
The session is obviously, as you know, it's recorded. So for if you can't stay through the end or have friends that you want to share it with, this will be available right after we're done. And we are also streaming live on the PMO Leader YouTube channel. So for anybody who's logging in through YouTube, if you have any questions, please direct them through here through AirMeet, because the YouTube channel doesn't have an option for us to see your questions there. Um, or the other option is just email us and we'll take it from there. And you also have a reactions button down on the center of your screen. You have that nice emoji face. So anything that you like or appreciate, feel free to put in your reaction so we can see how you're feeling. Okay,
Awesome.
my blabber is done for
So, do you
now.
want me to kick into kind of an introduction or give my background for the people? I'm seeing people on the chat. So, Michael and Richard, great to see you guys. So, thanks for joining. So, I'll just start with my background, right? So, 30 years doing this, right? 30 long years doing this, 20 running PMOs. So, lots and lots of experience in this space. 10 PMOs across 4 companies. The other thing is really kind of unique is I've worked across multiple industries as well. So real estate and government and healthcare and transportation and highways. I did some amazing projects back in transportation and highways in Victoria. So I am Canadian, so you may hear a lot. So I may close to actually where you are in Toronto. So grew up in that area. So but yeah, author of 6 books. One of the ones we're going to talk about today is project communications and PMO books. And then I started to get into ebooks because it's much smaller, easier to consume, right? People are so busy. This communication tools book that we'll talk about is 600 pages or something. It's massive, right? And so and a lot of people are not spending the time, and we never wrote it from a read it from the start to the end. It was never in that same vein as is we really wanted to grab it off the shelf and I need a tool for this or I need a tool for that and to grab that tool. So, but it's a big book for sure. So yeah, so I'm excited to be here and excited to kind of field questions and talk about communications and really the importance of communications as well and where we still see, and like we said in the title, right? Why does communications continue to be a failure point? So how do we do this? Do we open it up to questions? Do we where how do we start?
Well, first of all, just wanted, to Michael's point, there's 702 pages.
Yeah,
So,
702. Yeah, it's massive. But and it's funny
uh,
because when we wrote the book, right? So it's an actual upgrade from the first book. So we wrote our first book. Bruce Taylor and I wrote our first book, and Bruce Taylor is 83 years old. He is 60 plus years in project management across. And I learned a ton in project management working with him, right? And so we wrote our first book in 2008 with Wiley called Project Management Communication Bible, and I'm sure people have seen that. It sold very, very well as part of the Bible series. And then we said, well, we need to upgrade this. We need to get Agile in here. The industry, the world's changing. Agile's here, right? We put Power BI in there and the importance of dashboards and reports. And when Bruce and I got this book and we said, hey, it is 702 pages, but the thing is, and we talk about this with the PMBOK, right? A lot of this PMBOK was no one wants to read the PMBOK from the first page to the last page, right? That was never the intention of the PMBOK, and it's never the intention of our book. So it is big, but we really did want it to be just grab the tool that you needed and then use that particular tool.
it's how was the collaboration with Bruce,
It was,
considering you?
yeah, it was good. So 2008, right? When we first wrote this first book, 2008, there was not the level of internet and Zoom and Teams, and we never had that back. We never had it back there. We literally spent 4 years every night and every weekend, except Christmas and New Year's, and we wrote this book together. And we had this interesting file sharing thing where we had a directory on my computer and it was a directory on Bruce's computer. And as we upgraded and updated the individual Word documents, which were the chapters, they would sync to one another. And so it was, 2008, right? Things were way different back then to where they are today. But that's literally how we wrote the book. And we wrote it for Wiley and Son. Mm-hmm.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, we wrote it for Wiley and Son, and so it was in the Bible series and then out of the Bible series, and in the Bible series and out of the Bible. So we had to rewrite the book two times, two different times. They go, no, it's got to be out of the Bible series, and we were like, oh, then we rewrote it. Oh no, it's got to go in. Because basically the Bible series, so if you think about Word, Excel, PowerPoint, they were all Bibles. Word Bible, Excel Bible, Windows Bible, or our project management communication tool. That's the latest one, but the project management communication Bible was the first one. So yeah, it was interesting.
So for you, it was also a matter of putting together your communication skills within your project between you two, right? It was kind of like
100%. Yeah. Yeah.
your own experiment.
Because when we first wrote it, so I started managing my first project in 91. So 1991, I managed my first project, and it was 2008 when we wrote this first book. So that was a lot of projects and a lot of different, and a lot of different learnings across how do you continue to get better communicating, right? And we found, and we've heard that saying, right? 90% of a project manager job is communications. I strongly believe that. I still strongly believe that. And that's why we see communication failures. That's why we see project failures, because PMs are not communicating. So in that time, that 91 to 2008, there was a lot of learnings. And so we took those learnings and we crammed into a book. And then Bruce had 60 years of project management, ahead of me, right? He had all that experience across construction projects and research projects. And so he brought his communication background as well, and we combined it into the book. And that's the value of both of these books, is you've got all my experience and all Bruce's experience combined into the 702 pages, as Michael says.
and it's also I guess the value comes from, as you mentioned, both of you having experience in different industries.
Yeah.
Where you
Yeah.
would probably see. Well, that's my next question is, have you seen trends across industries in terms of communication success or failure?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, you're going to see that, like, when we break down a project's a project, right? You've got customers, you've got team members, regardless of the industry. And I learned a ton about construction because Bruce was so deep into construction. He's like, when you're dealing with plumbers and you're dealing with electricians and you're dealing with, which is completely foreign to us in an IT world, right? That we don't deal with plumbers and concrete people and so electricians, right? That's not our space. We're developers, designers, architects, type of thing. But they come down to people are people. They need to be communicated, and they get communicated differently as well, right? So there's different communication styles and different communication techniques, and people want to be communicated differently. And so you have to adjust those communications.
And that would also, I guess, translate into different cultures.
Yeah, 100%. And so so I was PMing back in the Y2K days, right? So I was a project manager before Y2K, and then Y2K hit, and I started, and that opened up the different cultures. That opened up India. That opened up the various cultures, and therefore communications was very different. It was quite an interesting from a communication perspective. It was quite interesting back then because I was at AT&T at the time. We would have an individual that came from India that would work alongside of us, that would work with the Indian team. So they would be in Redmond, they would work alongside of us every day, and they would communicate to the India team. And that lasted maybe a year and a half, and they were like, "Ooh, that's way too expensive. We gotta get rid of that extra resource." But it did allow us to figure out how to communicate and communicate more effectively. Dialects were stronger. Like, there was all these communication techniques that you had to deal with. And again, we didn't have Teams back there. We didn't have Zoom. We had, some of the Microsoft products that were not as advanced as they are today. So, communications became so much stronger. Not everyone had cameras, right, at that time. And so cameras were not a thing. And everyone, so firing up cameras and stuff and really allowing that connection like we're doing here, it just wasn't a thing back then. So you had to really get good at communications.
And be creative, I guess.
And be creative,
to find
a
way.
Yeah, and you really had to take, as a project manager, you had to take control of the call. You had to show your leadership. You had to show basically, you had to show that you were in charge of the project, regardless of where they were. You had to show you were in charge of the conversation and in charge of the project when you had developers and testers in countries thousands of miles away, but you were still needing to get things done on time, on budget, type of thing.
And look at us where we are now, when we have so much technology.
Yeah, it's amazing, right?
Do you find this, in terms of progress, but also regress? Do you find it's overwhelming for the project managers of today?
Yeah, well, I think here's the fundamental difference. I think project managers are so overwhelmed with their projects that things just keep their projects moving, a lot of times it's minimum bar, right? A lot of times, and I've released a couple of these on my YouTube channel, these challenges of project managers today, right? And I think what we're seeing is project managers are so busy. They're just going from project to project to project. They have multiple projects. And so the communications has got to be that much tighter and that much more crisper to be able to communicate more effectively. Because there's rarely in IT, and I haven't seen it, but rarely are they working on project managers working on one project, unless it's massive, of course. But you've got one or two projects at least. I've always used a 3-to-4 ratio. So every project manager has at least three projects, four stretching it a little bit, but at least three. And so with that, you just have to have everything buttoned up, and your communications has really got to be a major part of that because we see projects fail. Yeah, exactly.
And I believe in the book you also have was it this book the one that you included some templates?
Oh yeah, there's
So you
71. Yep, there's 71 templates. And what we do is we basically say, hey, listen, just start this one. It's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be directionally here, and because we've written about it, here it is in the book. You can read about it, and then you can use the template. So yeah, there's 71 templates on this. And in the back of the book, which is really interesting, in the appendix, it's what part of the project would you use those? So that was the one thing we did, and I don't know. I'm old school. I still swear by PMI's knowledge area and process, right, groups, and so the book is really focused on that, and the communication tools are focused on in initiation to closing. What tools do you need from a knowledge area perspective? What tools do you need? So at page 26, 27, you can actually see the mapping of the communication tools to the knowledge areas and the life cycle processes. And I just believe strongly that we need to stick with those. And so from a communication perspective as well.
And we have Rich shared with us and with all the attendees. She actually sent a very nice, interesting article. He was asking.
Yeah. Pulse of profession. I love the pulse of profession. I think that is, and thanks, Rich, for sending that, because I absolutely love what PMI has done from a pulse of profession perspective. I think they always stay right on top of what's going on. I just think they may have made a slight mistake with this knowledge area process groups, but I digress.
So going back to, because I think I may have to taken a bit of a jump start with asking about some of the templates and all. The book, the 702 pages, they have a really organized and well structured just layout. How did you and Bruce think of basically what were the main elements that you were looking at when you wrote the book? Because there's a lot to think of when it comes to communication.
It's a funny story, right? Because, and I don't know if Wiley is even a business anymore, but Wiley and Son was the biggest at the time. Like, they are the publisher across America, right? I think they're still around. I'm not sure, to be honest. But anyway, when we were in that Bible series, and as I said, we rewrote it a couple of times, there's an actual structure. So we followed that same structure how we wrote the book. We basically said, if you're planning to use any one of the tools, just go to the planning section. If you want to actually use the tool, go to the back of the book and find that same tool. And of course, we connected them, but we said, hey, you may read this part of this book or this tool and go, yeah, this doesn't work for me. Then what we didn't want to do is we didn't want to make it 15 pages on a tool you may not use. So we broke it up on purpose. And some people get confused by that, but literally it's a follow-up on how Wiley forced us to do it the first time. And we just kept the structure, because once you get it, you'll go, oh, that makes sense. The first part of the book is planning to use the tool. And the second part is, how do I actually construct the tool? What are the formulas? Where's the template? That type of thing. And so you can read it and you go, this doesn't work for me. Don't read the back part. Or if it does work for you, you'll go immediately to the back and start creating it. So there was logic in how we created it, but sometimes people are like, "Ooh, well, that doesn't make sense." But each tool would be multiple pages, and so we wanted to break it up and make it more consumable.
Okay. Well, I think that sounds pretty straightforward.
Yeah, once
Mm,
you get into it a little bit, again, it's 702 pages. It was never meant to be read from start to finish. It just that is not the thing to it. It was never for that. It was really about what part of the project am I in, and what tools should I use in that part of the project. And that's really a fundamental component, right? Is, hey, what are my risks? What are my issues? What am I, hey, I got to do procurement. I got to do procurement. I've never done procurement before. What are some of the tools I use in the procurement space or in that area of the project, right? Or I'm initiating a project or I'm in the planning. What tools do I use in that space?
yeah, exactly. So it's more of like a daily. It's a tool of its own, as
Yeah,
as as
a
I.
little bit. Yeah. Yep.
It's kind of. I think that the first one with the Bible is probably.
Yeah, and it was
I think
funny because we got a lot of heat for that. There was a lot of people that didn't like that. And I went, "It's Wiley. I have nothing to do with this. It's just part of the series." But they were like, "You shouldn't write a book that has a Bible in the title." I go, "Word Bible, Windows Bible, Excel Bible. I mean, I have nothing, So it was an honor to be published by such a big publishing company, though. Back in the day.
well, I guess they probably, as you saw the need for it, right? Because that's
It,
one of the reasons why you started I guess the communications book is because maybe back then there wasn't really too much out there.
Yeah, so that was it exactly. So Bruce and Taylor and I, my co-author, we were actually on a board for a local university, and we were advisors. So we were kind of the industry advisors for this course, for this university course, this project management master's course. And we sat and we said, okay, what are all the books that the students have to buy for this course? And we got to communications, and these poor students, they had to buy like 6 different books and to satisfy the requirements for their communication class. I remember to the day it was PM 501 communications. And I went to Bruce, I go, well, why don't we just write a book? And he goes, okay. And so we literally wrote the book because these students had to buy 5 or 6 different books for their one communication class, and they'd use this chapter and this particular chapter and this one. It was like, wow, there's no single book out there. So this thing really morphed into communication tools, but there's a lot around planning, there's around Power BI, there's a lot of other components, foreign communications, remote communications. We tried to add a lot so that the actual classrooms could use it. And so the
Curious.
first book in this one is actually in quite a few schools as well.
And that's interesting because I'm assuming that back in 2008, the remote communication, social media, I think you have also a chapter about social media and
Yep.
remote virtual projects. How advanced was it at the time?
Well, it wasn't. See, so because Y2K, right? Y2K is what kicked off. So this was 2008. This was 8 years after Y2K. And this is also why we added Agile, because again, if you go back to the early days of Agile, right? I mean, again, it was relatively new back then, right? Remote was relatively new back then. Bruce had worked all around the world. He had worked in all these foreign countries and built an oil rig and or what was it? Yeah, an oil rig in the middle of the ocean. So I mean, so he had worked around the world. So he really added a lot to that foreign communications and working in foreign countries because he had worked in many countries. So it was all pretty brand new. And there wasn't any books that covered that stuff back then. And I mean,
Yeah.
sure, there's a lot more now, and that's why we've upgraded this book and from the Bible to this tools book and added Agile, added Power BI and dashboards and reports because it's so important.
Any plans on making any updates now that is
Well, I
that
don't
remote?
know. Yeah, yeah. No, there's enough remote in there. I don't know actually because I think the industry's changed, right? The consumption, if you would, the consumption of these books and these bigger books. People are looking for fast. They need quick. They need, and so I would certainly never do a 702-page book anymore. It just wouldn't. It wouldn't fly. But really more around how do we get consumable, how do we get quick, how do we give people the messages they need while they're still managing their multiple projects and doing what they do. The fundamentals are solid though. The things that we cover around, text versus graphics, plan your communications, using these tools, all those fundamentals are there and will be there for years. But yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know if that's a thing anymore. I think it's more consumable, maybe more ebooks with bite sizes of information.
Okay, well, I guess we'll just stay tuned for
Yeah, we'll
surely
see.
you will come up with your
Yeah,
YouTube channel is always full of fresh updated videos. I
thanks.
just
Yeah.
shared the link in
Oh,
the
I
chat.
appreciate
Feel
that.
free
Yeah,
and
yeah.
look
I
around. You will see is always is always putting together a nice video. So
I'm really. I just released, 10 project management videos. There's 10 PMO videos coming out real soon. So, yeah, I'm constantly trying to give back and share. And 30 plus years of doing this is a long time, and I'm still actively in it. I'm a PMO director now. We've got a large PMO, so I'm actually in the middle of doing this and seeing what people are experiencing and in the middle of multiple projects that people are trying to manage while still communicating well, dealing with all that with COVID and all the things that we've been dealing with, right? So I'm deep in the middle of it, so I use a lot of the experience and background from the 30 plus years that goes into those videos and stuff.
yeah, and you also offer the training and the coaching
Yep.
service
Yep.
in addition to your day to day
Yep.
PMO director job, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Always trying to give back, mentor, coach, try to really help people and grow in their career. I'm real passionate about it because Bruce really helped me, right? Like when I met Bruce, he was 40 plus years into project management, and he's been my mentor. He's 83 or something right now. He's long out of project management, but you got to have a mentor. You got to have a coach. I'm so thankful for having someone to turn to and say, what do I do in this situation? What do I do in that situation? Right. And you can only find so many YouTube videos or so many web articles. Sometimes you need someone to talk to and work through these problems. So I'm always willing, helpful, trying to give back.
So then we, on behalf of the PMO leader, we will also give a big shout out to Bruce.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Hopefully he's joining us today, but hopefully he'll have a look over the recording maybe.
exactly. Exactly.
um, Bill, we have a few questions. Would
Okay.
you like me to take
Of course.
to
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
to look
Love
at
it.
them? We have some day to day stuff happening here. So
Okay.
Michael is asking, and I can actually put this on stage.
Oh. Okay. And
That's a very good question.
we're together. Yeah. In your experience, how has this affected project communications? In your experience with remote teams and remote working around, how's it? I'm not sure. I mean, what's the actual? How has this affected? So remote teams with like Teams and Zoom and um, yeah. I mean, I'm trying to figure out how has this affected project communications, project management communications. I think it's definitely tighter, right? Like tougher, right, from a time zone perspective, right? We're still dealing with time zones, but I think our tools have gotten better. Our SharePoints, our Teams. For example, Teams, right? They've just done wonders with Teams where you can have chats and you can have SharePoints that are associated to the Teams channels. So I think we've come a long way. I think we were forced to come a long way with COVID and all the things that we were forced to deal with over the last couple of years. But I think from a communication perspective, it's gotten better, but you're still dealing with the hour differences. You're still dealing with the nuances of working with people in different cultures, different backgrounds, different experiences. But the tools have really helped things come a long way from that perspective. So yeah, that's my gut on that for sure.
Well, thank you. That was indeed a very good question and a very good
Yeah, well,
answer.
I had to read it a couple times. Oh, yeah.
So we also have the option, by the way, for the audience, if anybody wants to come on stage, just let me know. That can be done. Let's see. We have also from Michael.
Okay.
Michael is full of great questions.
Yeah.
Let's see.
The amount of time that they have to do it. That's the biggest challenge. And so we alluded to it earlier, right? If you're running 3 or 4 different projects, which most IT folks are, right? They don't have the time to dedicate towards good proper communications. And so they don't have time to plan it. They don't have time to execute it the way they need to. I think they try to get to the minimum bar and they just try to get as little as possible to make sure the project's still successful. And I think that's going to hurt us, right? I think if we don't pause and stop a little bit and go, how am I communicating with my customers? I always use this analogy. Are they text people or are they graphics people, right? I think that's a question that we don't ask them. So we'll send off a status report, we'll send off a PowerPoint, we'll send something off and we'll go, are they resonating with that? Because the PMO may say this, and I'm sending what the PMO tells me to do, but it may not resonate. And so I think one of the biggest challenge really is, are they having the time? Are they pausing to ask the text versus graphics? And are they communicating effectively with their customers while still trying to balance all their projects?
Cool. Thank you, Michael. I think that's a question that everybody had somewhat in the back of their mind. You can only think
Yeah.
of those executives who, you would send out a long list of numbers, but they would only actually want to see a graph, maybe.
Yeah.
To your point, text or graph person.
Yeah.
That makes
But I have another story. So I was at a large software company in Redmond, and I was working for a GM, and that GM asked me. He said, "Okay, Bill," he goes, "I'd like a list of all the servers around the world." And I was working for a particular department, and I said, "No problem." So I built him a PowerPoint, and this was a beautiful PowerPoint. Literally, you could frame it. It had the world's map. It had London that had 27, and Russia had 53, and all these and it was beautiful. Like it was colored, and it was amazing. So I launch it off to him. He fires it back to me. He goes, "Just give me the Excel." And I went, I spent days on this PowerPoint. It was beautiful. Because I run into his office. I go, "What are you talking about? What's wrong with this thing? It's beautiful." He goes, "I just wanted the raw numbers. I just wanted it." And he was fairly high up at that company, and he just wanted the raw numbers. So from that time on, I went, I am going to ask that question. And it's an odd question. It really is an odd question. Like, hey, are you a text person or are you a graphics person? Right? But if you don't ask that, then what you do is you have the chance of sending completely wrong information to your customer and not knowing it's going to land. So I just immediately ask that question. I go, yeah, kind of an odd question, but let me just ask it because it's going to make a huge difference. And there's other nuances of how you find it, right? And so when we were in the office, or you find if whether a person's text or graphics, when we were in the office, when you went into someone's office, you and their whiteboards, you could pretty much tell if they were a text person or a graphics person. Because if you think about that, and I've tested and proven this theory over and over again. If you think about that, when people came into my office, I go, "Hey, can you draw that on the board for me?" And if I had all these graphics all over my board, because that's how I resonate, because I'm a graphics guy, that's how I resonate, right? Then they'll come in, they'll go, look at all these graphics. He's clearly a graphics guy. Or if I send emails and I have more graphics in my emails than text, then you can pick those nuances up. But little tips to figure out what your customers are and your leadership and your main executives, because if you don't resonate well with them from a communication perspective, you're dead. And just because the PMO says do this and do this, it may not resonate with your customers. So you have to adjust based on what their preferences are, or they won't read it. He literally responded with my PowerPoint going, "This is garbage. I just want the Excel." I'm like, great. What are you gonna do, right?
Yeah, I mean, you still can be excited about the fact that you invested work into a beautiful presentation.
It was beautiful. It had world pictures with 27 here, had all these graphics, and it was wonderful. Damn, I probably still have that
So,
PowerPoint. I was so proud of it. He goes, just send me the
well,
Excel. I went, okay.
we can propose a new template of the organizational chart from now on. Under the role, we can say graph or text person.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. That's a great way of doing it, really. But it is an odd question. It is really like, are you a text person or a graphics person? Like to ask that's a little weird. So you got to kind of figure out how to get that information, or just come out and ask it, because your
Yeah.
communications will resonate so much better. I have my PMs send me Excel spreadsheets all the time, and I go, I'm lost. Like, throw that in a chart. I have no idea what you're talking about. I can't do it. Some people can't grasp it. 1,000 row spreadsheet in Excel. I'm going, nah, I can't read this. Make a bar chart of it, and I'll totally understand it. It's just how people are wired, right? But it's a big difference from a communication perspective.
But for sure, they know that you are a graph person.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So,
Oh yeah. They don't. They definitely know. He's going to want a PowerPoint on this.
okay, ready for another question?
Sure.
Let's see. We have a question
Oh,
from
right.
Brian. Thank you
Oh,
for
I
your
love
question,
that.
Brian.
Oh, I love that question, Brian. Thank you for asking that. That's awesome. Okay. So, not everyone can make this pivot, right? I love this stuff. I love this stuff. Okay. Not everyone can make this pivot. So, when you think about a project manager and then a program manager and a portfolio manager, project managers are deep, right? And they know every risk and every issue and every action, right? Then a program manager has got to start looking wide, right? So they got to look at multiple projects that are going on. They don't go deep necessarily. They got to, right? And so from a communication perspective, you got to look wide. You got to click up. From a portfolio level, I ran a very large portfolio at Microsoft, like at a small Redmond company, but I ran this a very large portfolio at this Redmond software company in Redmond, and basically you really quickly get into there's 300 projects that are going on here. Like, I can't go deep. So from a communication style perspective, it's really about clicking up and clicking up to the 10,000 foot level, right? And so project managers are going to go deep. Program managers are going to go a little bit wider, little deep. Portfolio managers are going to be really at the highest level. I mean, when I was a portfolio manager, it was a very, very high level communications, monthly meetings, monthly budget reviews, and all that stuff at the highest level. So you really have to change your communications based on the role you are and really think wide, not deep.
Cool. Thank you, Brian.
Yeah, it's a great question.
You're the excitement.
I do. I love this stuff.
I also want to put something on stage from Michael.
Oh, yeah.
It's not a question, it's just kudos for the book.
Yeah. Thanks. We added that chat. We added social media because it's really, really interesting. You think about a new car coming from Ford or Toyota or something, right? You don't think about the project side of this, right? You don't think. Obviously, when they create a new drink from Coke or Pepsi or whatever, right? They're projects. These are all projects. And so they get to the point now, you're obviously how they manufacture a drink or how they manufacture a car. You're not going to report from a social media perspective, hey, the car is in this stage or the drink's in this stage or whatever. But when they go live, right, there's a new drink, there's a new car, there's a new. So that's what we did is we said, okay, let's look at our projects. Let's look at the communication tools. Let's look at why we communicate. And we broke down this whole section, I think it's chapter 5, around social media and really figuring out there are components that you would want to get to and you'd want to promote on social media when your car goes live, your drink goes live, your X goes live, right? Construction's huge from a social media perspective, right? We just released a new bridge or a new highway is opening up, right? But you don't think about that, especially in IT. Like you just don't think about that unless you're working on major world changing events. Like a new Windows release is a major social media event, a new Apple release, right? So we wanted to really get project managers thinking about how does social media and projects work together, and then how do some of these particular tools work together as well. So it was kind of an interesting nuance of putting those two worlds together. So thanks, Michael, for calling that out.
Thank you,
Chapter
Michael.
5.
It seems that others have been calling that out too on wherever you have your book posted, like on Amazon and so on. I've seen we've seen a few reviews kind of in that note, especially appraising the social media aspect.
Yeah,
So
isn't that interesting? And that was back in the day. It was back a while ago, and obviously new tools coming up all the time. But just getting project managers going, thinking about, hey, when you launch a new car from Ford, clearly there's a major social media play to that, right? They're tweeting the car, they're Instagram in the car, they're Facebook in the car, right? There's all that component out there. So we thought that would be interesting to add.
I think nowadays I think the process is probably already established to some extent, anything that's social media campaign. So anybody who comes up with something different, how do
Yeah,
you navigate
yeah,
through all these resources
yeah,
to stand out?
yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah. But yeah, so kind of interesting. Yeah, thanks for calling that.
Okay, one more, also from Michael.
Oh yeah. So yeah, 100%. So we have a Facebook group that basically, and a new mastermind that we're trying to create and get started off. But basically, what we do is, when you think about grabbing a group of PMs together, or PMO people together, PMs together, what we're trying to do is really come and help one another, right? Join this group, get everyone together and say, hey, I've got this problem on X, and then get a lot of smart people together and help them solve that X. I'm part of multiple different masterminds. So I'm in various masterminds, and they're fascinating. They're amazing because you quickly get your problem solved and help other people solve their problems. Right. And so it's this area, like you can YouTube and you can search the internet and but if you are in a group of people and they're saying, hey, I've got this problem, can we help solve this problem? And so we're really trying to form this group of people to come together and help solve each other's problems because, a project management's a lonely sport, right? It's a little bit like tennis. It's a one person lonely sport. And so if you've got this ability to grab other people and help bounce ideas off other people, you're going to move your bar faster. You're going to move, your project situation faster. And so we're really looking to help people move forward and really help people with their particular project problems. And so, yeah, being part of masterminds, that's where I was like, ooh, we should do this in the PMO and project management space because it's just brilliant. And there's not a lot of them out there. And so people don't know where to go to help.
Okay. I sent a link in the chat for the
Cool.
Facebook group. Is there something for the masterminds, the PMO mastermind series?
I don't have the link up. No, but that's fine. Yeah, people can find it through that. That's totally fine.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Or email me.
Let's see. Okay, we're being filled up with questions. That's awesome. Thank you, everybody. That's the point of these kind of discussions. This is where the real value comes from. Okay, so another question. I'm not gonna put it on. I think I can put it on stage. Yeah. Let's see. Let me know if you can see it. If not, I'll just read it out.
How to best handle situation in your project when communications and meetings are happening without you involved as a PM. Yeah, you got to get in front of that. So I would say that's a great question. You got to get in front of that. So you got to figure out why you're not involved in that, right? And so we often talk about project managers having a seat at the table. Project managers, like, why would they have meetings without you? Now, some meetings, take a typical an IT project, right? If developers and testers are going to meet together, you don't necessarily have to be there. But if there's very big, important meetings and they're having those meetings without you, you got to get to the root of why. Why are they having those meetings, right? Why don't you have a seat at that table? And what are you doing? And what could you do differently that they're perceived as valued and have a voice, right? So you have a seat at the table because they want to hear your voice. They want to know what you have to hear. You're in charge of the project. You're running the project. And so if they're meeting without you, then they may not be perceiving your value. And so you got to figure out, why are they having the meetings? What are the meetings about? Because you don't necessarily have to be at every meeting. But if they are really important project meetings and you should be there, then, frankly, it may be the value in what they're seeing that you may not be perceiving as providing value in the conversation. So I would unpack that a little bit, try to understand the meetings, try to understand who's booking the meetings, why you're not included. I'd have private one-on-ones with them and say, hey, what's going on? How, what could I do to really get myself at that table, and how could I help?
Awesome. Thank you. Good question. Good lessons learned here. You're most welcome.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, if the project manager is not there, yeah, you have to look at the communication matrix, right? But again, a developer to developer meeting or a developer to tester meeting, you may not necessarily need to be there, right? A PM doesn't have to be in every meeting at every time, because then you'd balance the micromanagement a little bit. And if you're running multiple projects, right, you just don't frankly have the time in the day to be able to go to every meeting at every time. You gotta empower your team. And so that's a little bit of letting the team drive, letting the team run, and then you stepping in, you driving where appropriate. But it doesn't mean you have to be at every meeting at every time.
Unless you're on mute.
What? No, you're on mute?
You can be in the background on mute.
Yeah, hiding.
What are your takeaways, Bill, in all these many projects? What do you think from all the tools available? What would you think is the most, I guess, priceless for you when it comes to communication?
Relationships, right? So, that's one thing I've learned very quickly. I always go back to the art and science of project management. I continue to go back to that. I stress that like a crazy man. I believe strongly that it's a people business, right? Project management is a relationship game. It's a people business, and all the issues and risks and actions and schedules and all that stuff that just helps you get the thing done. It's all about relationships. It's all about communications. And my takeaway over 31 years of doing this, or 30 whatever it is now of doing this, is it's a relationship. It's a long-term game. And if you build great relationships, it's going to take you very, very far in this career. And if you just worry about your issues, risks, actions, decisions, and all the 71 tools we got in this book, it's not going to do it. It's about relationships.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
And Rich it advises you to read the Pulse report.
Yeah. Then you absolutely need to read. Okay, I will. Oh, good. Okay, cool. Relations and building communications long term. Yeah, 100%. And I haven't read that. And Rich, no, it really is true. And it was what I found. It's funny because when I'm 10 PMOs in across 4 different companies, right? And when I first started building PMOs, it was all about projects and risks and schedules and action items and decisions. And it was really built on the fundamentals of PMI and all the goodness of PMI, right? And what I've quickly found is no, it's a marathon, and it's about people, and it's about relationships. And if you nail the relationships, then running a PMO and driving a PMO and driving a project or a program or even a portfolio, it's going to be the relationships that help you be successful. Relationships will move mountains. Relationships with customers, relationship with leaders, it's going to move mountains for you. A good schedule is important, but nothing but like relationships.
That's a good way to put it. A good relationship will move mountains.
Yeah.
You also nice
Someone's going to
of
tweet that. Please tweet that. Bill Dow, relation, the quote of the day.
all rights reserved.
All right.
Let me just have a look and see if there's any other questions. Michael has another question. Let's see.
Any advice on communicating bad news? Yeah, yeah. I mean, 100%. You just go straight in with the bad news, right? Bad news, but always have options. So we're running behind in budget, but here are some things that we can do to get back. We can get it back on track. Or we just lost an employee. Here's what we can do to get a vendor in place to recoup that. So I think you just have to go straight in, right? I don't think you sugarcoat things. I think people just want the facts. Everyone's busy. Everyone's, got lots of things on their plate. Just be straight up and say, here's where we're at, and here's how we can address it. So you don't just go on bad news and the whole world's falling apart. It is, here's the news, good or bad, here's the bad news, but here are the things that we can do about that. And then softly communicating that, of course, but then always have options. Always have this, but this is what we can do about it. And you find that very quickly, right? Is executives are fine with bad news. They're okay with bad news. They just want to know that you've got and you thought about some options to get them out of that bad news. So I think that's a critical thing. You just go with bad news and no options, that's a problem. You go with bad news and options, it's gonna really help you move this situation forward.
It doesn't sound so bad when you have a solution, right?
That's right. Yeah. So here, hey, I got some bad news for you. X. Oh, but by the way, here are some options to solve that. Right? It softens the blow a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're coming. Okay, one more. I think we have time for one more.
What's this say? Someone who is not required?
How can we communicate?
Wait, someone who's not required in meetings, how can we communicate this condition? Oh, if they're not required? Oh, yeah, 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 that's fine. Yeah, not everyone's required. You don't always have to. What you want to do is you want to be very clear on the topic. You want to be very clear on who's needed for the topic. So if it's two developers and a tester or something, and the project manager is not needed, or the designer, architect is not needed, it's just like, here's the topic, here's who we need to bring the topic, here's and really be very clear. I'd rather not know and be clear that I'm not needed at a meeting than not invited to a meeting. So it's not we don't need you or we don't value your advice. Is for this particular meeting, you're just not needed. Like, you don't have the developing skills. This is two developers and a tester talking. So I think it's really about being open and really understanding the purpose of the meeting and the people that you're inviting and what they bring to the table and their expertise they bring to the table. So just be very clear about it.
Yeah, that's a good question, and I think it's a very common occurrence
Yeah,
to have people join. But I think it's, as you pointed out, it's probably a matter of people not being fairly aware of what the point of the meeting is.
that's right.
And
Because
sometimes you just
everyone
think,
feels
okay,
like you have to be. Yeah. Everyone feels like you got to be in every meeting at every time. You really don't, right? Like, you got to let the teams manage and the teams do their part. So, be okay, be strong enough in your position and strong enough in your career that you don't have to go to every meeting.
yeah, that is so true. But we also like having our calendars booked with meetings. So I think the project managers here have a great and important role to kind of triage uh, this communication flow
Yeah,
for the
100%.
team members.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess this was a huge amount of collaboration with our audience. A
Yeah,
great,
great.
really good questions. Thank you so much. This made the session way more interactive, and this is what we wanted. So hopefully you all received, you got the takeaways that you were looking for, and if not, obviously, when we're done with the session, I'll put some links in the chat from
Yeah.
on how to reach out to Bill,
Yep.
and obviously have my email. So if anything, you can just reach out directly, and we'll make ways. But before we close, we do have about 2 minutes. Maybe we can stay a bit over. I wanted to see if, Bill, you want to do a quick rapid fire question, which
Sure.
is our traditional way of closing these episodes.
Okay. All right.
So
I'm
it's pretty much
ready.
ready. I think you know how this goes. I'll just have
I
a few
do.
questions and you just have to answer, and we'll just have a good laugh. And that's pretty much
Okay.
it.
All right. Perfect. Yes. No, no.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
um, what other career would you choose other than
Tennis.
what you're doing now?
Tennis.
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 Wow.
Professional tennis
I
player.
love
I love tennis.
Okay. What's your favorite tennis player?
But what?
Your favorite tennis player?
Oh, John McEnroe, and then Roger Federer.
Microsoft.
Everyone loves
Okay.
Roger.
Microsoft or Apple? What
Oh,
would you choose?
Apple. Apple. I'm surrounded by Apple. Yep. Love
Okay.
Apple.
Do you watch soccer?
No,
Okay.
I'm
So
too
then I'm not
busy
gonna ask.
producing ebooks and courses and all that stuff. No time for that.
Okay, then I'll leave the World Cup questions separate if you're not.
No,
Um, how do you say your name backwards?
Wad, I don't know. Wad something. Ilb, Ilb, Wad
Okay,
Ilb.
that's that's very good and very quick.
It's a short name.
um, I bet nobody asked you that before.
No, no one has ever asked that.
What's the strangest thing you ate and liked it?
What is the what? Strangest thing?
You had to
Mm.
eat and you liked it.
Oh, dulse. Dulce. So, because I'm Canadian, so dulse is from New Brunswick area. It's purple. It's purple seaweed, and they sell it in bags, like a bag of chips. It's actually pretty good. It's salty, but it's a required taste. It's dulce. Yeah, you
Okay.
know it. You're
I have,
Canadian. You know dulce,
I
right?
don't know this one.
Yes, from the my parents are from St. John, New Brunswick, so had dulce. Yeah,
Okay, okay, sounds good. I made a note. This is
yeah,
where I'm going now. Okay. One more question.
sure.
What's your favorite city to spend the winter holidays in?
Where a place to spend the winter holidays? Hawaii.
Is that your favorite place?
Yeah, it's
You would
beautiful.
go
Yeah,
anytime?
yeah, I just love it. Yeah, it's wonderful. Yeah, yeah.
I
Any of
haven't
the
been yet,
islands
but
are fun. Yeah.
have you been to the volcano, the
Yes,
volcano
we
park?
were there. Yes, yes, that's a big island, and I didn't love the big island because it's all driving. We did 600 miles in 4 days or something. It's all driving. To get to that volcano is a big drive, but the beaches are black with black sand and stuff. It's fascinating. Yep.
Okay, sounds pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, Bill. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
This was pretty much it.
All right.
We
Well, thanks everyone for
we're
joining
very
too.
excited that you could be here and we had this convo, and we appreciate also our audience for their questions. Everybody, you have the links in the chat, and we will make the recording available to you very, very quickly. So you can still look at on LinkedIn or the PMO website or the YouTube channel, and you'll find it there. And we hope that you share it further, and we look forward to seeing you in our next episodes. We have a monthly episode. The next one is actually in between the holidays on the 28th of December.
Oh,
So
wow.
whoever is around, we're waiting for you. And Bill, I hope you will. I hope to see you soon. But
Yes.
in the meantime, I hope you'll have a great holiday season and
Thank
a
you.
great end of the year, and have a great start in 2023, and hope to hear from you soon.
Awesome. Thank you. And thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. It was really fun. Thank you.
We hope you had
Yeah, it was
fun.
great. I love this stuff. So,
Okay, so do we. So do we. Thank you,
thank
everybody.
you.
Have a great
Thank
rest
you.
of the day, and we'll be in touch.
Okay.
Bye
Bye
bye for
bye.
now.